You might assume a healer is someone, well, perfectly whole, someone who's kind of transcended all suffering.
Right. But what if the very act of healing and the capacity to help others actually emerges from one's own pain?
Exactly. What if the most effective guides are those who've, walked through their own personal fires?
That's precisely the profound concept we're taking a deep dive into today, the wounded healer. We'll explore its ancient origins, how it shows up, especially in psychotherapy, and what it means for human connection and resilience in your own life.
And our sources for this journey, they include a really key philosophical text from back in 1972, and also a more contemporary collection of essays from 2017.
So yeah, a nice range of perspectives there.
Definitely. Together, they offer this rich tapestry, looking at this powerful idea. Our mission really is to dig into how personal suffering, maybe surprisingly, can actually become a source of strength, empathy, and a deeper connection for all of us.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where does it actually start? Well, the idea of the wounded healer, it was articulated by Carl Jung. He drew from that ancient Greek legend of Asclepius.
Asclepius. He was the physician, right?
Exactly, the physician who could heal because he recognized his own wounds.
So it's not about being unscarred, but about understanding your own scars, really knowing them, having worked through them.
Precisely. Jung's core belief was that a healer's suffering isn't just some burden. It's actually a powerful, compelling force. It drives their need to heal others.
Almost like their own journey through darkness uniquely equips them to guide others out.
Yeah, he even believed that only a wounded healer who had genuinely healed their own wounds could effectively heal others.
Huh. It makes you wonder then, how often are people actually drawn to healing professions because of their own experiences with pain?
That's a huge question. And, well, our sources offer some fascinating insights. Research reveals a pretty strong connection between choosing psychotherapy as a profession and one's own woundedness. Yeah. Candidates for psychotherapy training, they often report feeling summoned by an internal voice, almost like a calling.
The calling.
And themes like early object loss, that's, significant emotional loss or separation early on, or even narcissistic needs, they frequently pop up in the personal histories of experienced therapists.
Wow.
Some even say they felt they took on a therapist role in their own families from a super young age. There's one quote from a social worker: "I was a therapist from the age of 5.
A therapist from the age of 5. Gosh, that's incredibly telling. It points to an underlying hope, doesn't it?
It really does.
Maybe a hope of vicariously healing themselves or finding those deep connections that might have been missing in their own lives.
That seems to be a big part of it.
So is this pattern pain leading to healing? Is that just a Western psychology thing, or do our sources show something more, universal?
That's a great question. And yeah, if we look beyond Western psychology, we find these really striking parallels.
Like what?
Well, there's a strong connection to shamans. They gain their wisdom through suffering, often through voluntary physical or emotional crises. Jung himself pointed out that the making of a medicine man involves serious agony of body and soul.
Right. A real trial by fire. And it goes even deeper, doesn't it?
How so?
Well, like psychoanalytic psychotherapists, shamans set up this direct relationship with the patient's conscious mind, but also an indirect one with their unconscious. And both have to enter a kind of trance or dissociated state to communicate most effectively. It's this profound idea that real healing often needs this deep, maybe unsettling immersion in shared experience.
Absolutely. So, okay, if personal suffering is often the seed for a healer's path, how does this actually play out in the therapy room? Because for a long time, there was this ideal, especially from Freud, right?
Yeah, the blank screen therapist.
Exactly. Someone who should show patients nothing but what is shown to them. The goal was to minimize the therapist's personal influence.
But when you think about just human interaction, how realistic is that? Or even desirable, really, in therapy? What does our modern understanding tell us?
That's exactly where relational psychology comes in. It argues that the blank screen isn't just impossible.
Right.
It's actually counterproductive. Our demeanor, our gender, how we look, even how we decorate our office, all these things communicate personal information.
Like what?
Well, one source points out, simply our look of recognition, or maybe lack of it, reveals if we know a movie or book a patient mentions. We're always communicating something.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You can't not communicate. So what's fascinating here is that the judicious, intentional use of self-disclosure, when it genuinely serves the patient's needs, can actually deepen the bond, the attachment, and add what one source calls a most human and needed dimension to therapy.
Absolutely. And our sources share this really compelling story about Alan P. Haber. He was a defense lawyer, but he had a felony past drug dealing, multiple convictions. And he fully disclosed this past to the bar, to his clients, and his clients. They reacted remarkably positively. One even said, "It made me feel like I could trust you."
Because he understood where they were coming from.
Exactly. They felt he would fight harder because he got it. His story really highlights how that kind of vulnerability, when it's authentic and has a purpose, can build incredible trust. It inspires belief in second chances.
That's such a powerful example. Telling your story can be healing, not just for the person hearing it, but for the one telling it. What about for therapists themselves? Do our sources get into the maybe health benefits for therapists when they face their own stuff through writing or sharing?
They absolutely do. Hugo, for instance, he initially really disliked exposing his personal life, but eventually he agreed to write his autobiography. That points to a courageous act of self-disclosure for many in the field. And research backs this up too. Confronting our deepest thoughts and feelings, whether you write it down or talk about it, can have remarkable short and long-term health benefits. It can actually neutralize many of the problems that keeping things bottled up causes.
So it's like a release.
Kind of. One of the authors in our source material even described how writing about her own past was this private experiment, and it felt surprisingly easy. It made her feel less alone.
That idea of personal struggle leading to the drive to heal, it's profound. But this deep engagement with human pain, whether it's your own or a patient's, it has to come with significant risks, right?
Oh, definitely.
Our sources call them occupational hazards, which can, sadly, turn a good therapist into a wounding healer.
We absolutely do. And one of the most, well, insidious hazards is vicarious traumatization.
Vicarious traumatization.
Yeah, where trauma becomes contagious. Therapists, just through repeated exposure to patient suffering, they risk developing symptoms themselves, or losing faith in healing, or even sometimes identifying with offenders or blaming victims.
So the sheer volume of pain, it can literally, contaminate the healer. That's a heavy risk. What other kinds of emotional entanglements do the sources mention?
Well, there are definitely significant emotional entanglements. Therapists can face the dangers of falling in love with a patient that's clinically called erotic countertransference, where the therapist's own unconscious stuff gets directed towards the patient.
Yeah, okay.
Or experiencing forbidden feelings like envy. Therapists have reported envying a patient's, money or personal qualities like being articulate or good-looking, or even just their youth and freedom.
And the risks aren't just emotional or psychological, are they? Our sources point to some very real physical dangers, too.
Sadly, yes. Research shows almost 1 in 5 psychologists reported being physically attacked by a client, and 16% of social workers have been stalked.
Wow. 1 in 5 attacked. That's a profoundly sobering list of risks.
Yes.
It really brings home the huge personal cost, doesn't it?
That absolutely does.
It's not just a job. It's this deep immersion in human pain.
It truly is. And even more sobering is the high suicide rate among psychotherapists. Female psychiatrists reportedly commit suicide at a rate 47 times that of the general population.
47 times? That's staggering.
It is. And even challenges like retirement can be particularly tough for those with attachment patterns that lead to sort of compulsive caregiving. Their whole identity can get wrapped up in providing care.
Given these profound risks, it raises a really difficult question. What happens when a healer's own wounds aren't integrated, but instead they lead to harm?
Yeah.
Our sources introduce this deeply troubling concept of the wounding healer therapists who often unconsciously end up harming their patients.
And the most egregious examples here are sexual boundary violations. Because of that inherent power balance, right, studies show an unacceptably high incidence rate, something like 7 to 12% among U.S. mental health practitioners.
7 to 12%. That's shocking. It's such a profound betrayal of trust.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the sources give some stark examples. There's the case of Jules Masterman, a very celebrated psychoanalyst who actually sexually assaulted a patient during a session.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was maybe even more shocking was the psychiatric community's response, which largely praised him despite the charges.
That's disturbing.
Then there's Richard, a therapist who developed this destructive, seductive, though non-physical relationship with a patient. It led to her self-harm, multiple hospitalizations.
Oh, my goodness.
And he stayed in practice. No complaints filed. He even paid her hospital bills on the condition she wouldn't report him.
That's just chilling. It's a reminder of how devastating that kind of betrayal can be.
Absolutely. And beyond harming patients, some therapists unfortunately turn that harm inward.
How so?
Well, Farqber's study, one of our sources, shockingly found a significant number of professional social workers, psychologists, psychiatric aides who engaged in life-threatening self-harm.
Or had severe eating disorders.
Really, professionals in the field. Yeah. It was even found that some individuals with severe psychopathology, like dissociative identity disorder, were admitted to psychoanalytic training programs undetected.
Undetected. Wow. It's just a sobering reminder that healers are human, with their own vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And that path of the wounded healer isn't without its shadows.
Not at all.
But, okay, here's where we shift gears a bit, towards a more hopeful counter-narrative. This idea of post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
Trauma, as incredibly difficult as it is, can apparently be fertile ground for unexpected positive outcomes. Outcomes that often outweigh reports of psychiatric disorders.
This is truly fascinating, isn't it? Stories of post-traumatic growth, they're kind of everywhere. From ancient history to pop culture.
Like what?
Well, think of fictional superheroes. Batman, Spider-Man, Green Lantern. Their origins are forged in profound loss and trauma, right? And that then drives them to protect others.
That's a great point. Or historical figures like Theodore Roosevelt. After losing both his wife and mother on the very same day, he channeled that grief into this relentless drive for reform and greatness. First in the NYC Police Commission, then as president, he literally transformed personal tragedy into a force for good.
And the sources, they share these deeply personal accounts of this kind of transformation. They reveal all these different pathways to growth. Take Emily Samuelson, for instance. She's a psychologist specializing in trauma. Her direct experience with childhood abuse, it didn't break her. Instead, it profoundly widened her heart, deepened her compassion.
Wow.
Similarly, Anita Perez Sawyer. Her brave return to her high school reunion after years struggling with a schizophrenia diagnosis, memory loss. It highlights this powerful act of reclaiming your own story, embracing the wounded self. She realized that the last healing step would be to embrace her as me.
What unites these incredibly personal stories, Emily Samuelson's journey, Anita Perez Sawyer's recovery, it's not just survival, is it? It's profound transformation. Our sources show how these individuals didn't just, cope with their pain. They actively integrated it. They allowed it to expand their capacity for empathy, for understanding. It's a powerful testament to the idea that our deepest wounds can become our most profound teachers.
We also hear from Susan Caviller-Adler. She became a psychologist after her father died, used dance therapy, psychoanalysis to mourn, confront childhood trauma, and transformed her demon lover fantasies into a source of understanding for herself and her patients.
That's incredible, using creativity like that.
Yeah. And Colleen Russell, whose mother died suddenly when she was 15 and who later had experiences in high-demand groups, she became a psychotherapist specializing in loss, trauma, cult recovery. She talks about her 30-plus year therapeutic relationship as this consistent, safe presence that helped her find her way.
30 years. That consistency is so important.
Absolutely. And the insights just keep coming. Ruth M. Lightmare, she went on this hero's journey to uncover her Holocaust survivor mother's unspoken past. And this personal quest profoundly shaped her work with politically persecuted patients.
Understanding intergenerational trauma.
Precisely. Eric Sherman, his father, had a psychotic breakdown. He found his childhood fears propelled him into a healing profession, learning to transform those internal monsters into moments of deep understanding. John A. Sloan, influenced by his father's suicide, went on this personal quest to understand how people adapt to painful circumstances. It led him to psychoanalysis and this concept of healing wounders, our capacity to both inflict and heal wounds.
Healing wounders. I like that.
And finally, Anthony Rankin Wilson found personal healing from the ancestral silence around his grandfather's suicide. He makes this profound connection between human woundedness and the wounded earth.
It's truly incredible how personal pain can be, transmuted into profound purpose. And this idea of post-traumatic growth, it's backed by research, right?
It is. Studies like the Grant study and work by Gina Higgins show that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's cultivated.
Cultivated how?
Through factors like, high IQ helps, exceptional talents, strong relationships, obviously, and a commitment to reflection and ongoing therapy.
So it's an active process.
Very much so. And crucially, the role of surrogates can't be underestimated.
Surrogates.
Yeah, therapists, teachers, even unexpected figures, like a kind butcher or candle maker mentioned in one study, they can provide this corrective impact. There's one powerful example described of a pedophile in a cult who, despite his own serious issues, offered a child a locus of hope and protection.
Wow. That shows connection can come from really surprising places and still profoundly impact resilience.
It really does.
This brings us towards the end to the sort of deeper call of the wounded healer. Connection in a world that often feels, well, dislocated. Henri Nouwen, in his 1972 text, he discusses modern society's shift away from fixed ideologies towards these fluid fragments.
Right. And this often leads to a search for new forms of immortality, as he puts it.
Immortality.
Yeah, ways to find lasting meaning or impact. He identifies two main paths people take in this search. There's the mystical way, that's an inner search for meaning, for connection.
Okay.
And then there's the revolutionary way, which aims for total societal upheaval, driven by this conviction that a new world is needed or maybe no world will remain.
What's fascinating here is Nouwen's insight into loneliness. He sees it as a fundamental human wound, but he argues that this wound, if we understand it, if we embrace it instead of just avoiding it, can actually be a precious gift, a source of self-understanding.
It's a powerful reframing, isn't it? True healing isn't about getting rid of loneliness entirely.
Which might be impossible anyway.
Exactly. But transforming our relationship with it. He emphasizes that no person, no experience, no community can truly remove this deep-seated human condition.
So what's the answer then?
Well, for Nouwen, the essence of healing presence lies in personal connection. He tells this poignant parable about a minister who failed to recognize the Messiah because he didn't actually look into the fugitive's eyes. It illustrates that genuine presence, real human connection, is paramount.
He makes this point really powerfully through the case of John Allen and Mr. Harrison, right? The elderly man facing death in that impersonal hospital setting.
Yes. Mr. Harrison expressed this deep fear of dying an impersonal death, this profound loneliness. He said, if this is the end, this is one who's going to be lost. And John Allen, the theology student visiting him, he really struggled to respond meaningfully.
So what could he have done, according to Nouwen?
Nouwen argues that John could have offered a transformative personal response in an impersonal milieu. It's about waiting for another being fully present, making yourself known, giving someone a reason to live, or maybe to face death with dignity.
How does that work in practice?
When someone says, essentially, I will not let you go, I'm going to be here tomorrow waiting for you, and I expect you not to disappoint me, it offers this profound reason to live, to connect. It anchors them.
So, in essence, true healing involves deep personal concern, a willingness to be vulnerable, and just the courage to meet others in their pain.
Exactly. Nouwen concludes that since God has become human, it is human beings who have the power to lead their fellows to freedom. It comes down to that human connection.
Wow.
So we've journeyed through this really profound paradox of the wounded healer, discovering that our deepest wounds, when we confront them with courage and compassion, can become the very source of our greatest strength, our capacity to connect with and heal others.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe think about your own experiences with adversity. How have you navigated moments of pain? And, what are the surprising ways those very challenges might have shaped your empathy, your resilience, or maybe given you unique insights?
And here's a final thought to leave you with. In a world that often tries to erase discomfort, to conceal vulnerability, what if the most courageous act you can perform, both for yourself and for those around you, isn't trying to overcome your wounds, but to acknowledge them, integrate them, maybe even celebrate them, as it's an undeniable part of your rich, evolving humanity.